"Mom, I need you to sign these papers today. We're putting the house in my name for tax purposes." Those were the words my daughter Emily spoke to me on a Tuesday morning while I was watering the roses in my front yard. She didn't ask. She didn't explain. She just handed me a manila folder and smiled that tight smile she'd perfected over the years. The smile that said she'd already made the decision, and I was just a formality. I looked down at the folder in my hands. My house. The house I'd paid for with 32 years of night shifts at Sacred Heart Hospital. The house where I'd raised her alone after her father decided a 23-year-old dental assistant was more interesting than his family. The house that was the only thing standing between me and complete financial vulnerability at 67 years old. I looked at Emily, really looked at her, and I saw something in her eyes that made my stomach turn. It was the same look I'd seen in her father's eyes the day he told me he was leaving. The look of someone who'd already justified what they were about to do, who'd already told themselves a story where they were the hero and I was just an obstacle. So I did something that surprised both of us. I smiled. Not the tired, resigned smile she probably expected, but a calm, knowing smile. And I said, "Sure, honey. Let me just read through everything carefully first. You know how important these things are." Her smile faltered for just a second. "Mom, my lawyer already reviewed it. It's standard stuff. You don't need to worry about the details." "Oh, I'm sure it is," I said, still smiling. "But I'd like to understand what I'm signing. I'll get back to you in a few days." She left then, her heels clicking impatiently on my driveway. And I stood there in my garden, holding that folder, feeling something shift inside me, something that had been sleeping for a very long time. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and read every single word in those documents. And what I found made my hands shake. Because Emily wasn't asking me to transfer the house for tax purposes. She was asking me to sign a quitclaim deed that would give her complete ownership immediately. There was no tax strategy. There was no plan to protect my interests. There was just a 17-page document that would make me homeless if Emily decided she didn't want me around anymore. I called 3 different lawyers the next morning. All of them told me the same thing. If I signed those papers, I would have zero legal claim to my own home. Emily could sell it, rent it out, or evict me whenever she wanted. And at 67, with only my Social Security check of $1,200 a month, I'd have nowhere to go. But here's what Emily didn't know. Here's what she'd forgotten in her rush to secure her inheritance while I was still breathing. I might have been the quiet mother who always said yes. I might have been the woman who worked double shifts and ate ramen noodles so she could afford Emily's soccer camp and debate team and college application fees. But I wasn't stupid. And I wasn't helpless. I was the daughter of Margaret Chen, who'd survived the Cultural Revolution by being 3 steps ahead of everyone who underestimated her. I was the woman who'd put herself through nursing school while raising a toddler and working full-time. I was someone who knew exactly how to plan, how to wait, and how to win. So I didn't sign the papers. I didn't call Emily to confront her. I did something much smarter. I started documenting everything. Let me tell you how I got here. How the daughter I'd sacrificed everything for became someone I barely recognized. Emily was born when I was 33 years old. Her father, Richard, was a pharmaceutical sales rep with a good salary and better promises. He told me we'd build a life together. A real family. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Because after growing up in foster care, bouncing between 7 different homes before I aged out at 18, I wanted more than anything to create the stable family I'd never had. For the first few years, it was good. Not perfect, but good. Richard traveled for work, but when he was home, he was present. He held Emily. He changed diapers. He told me I was doing a great job. I worked part-time at the hospital, building my career slowly because I wanted to be there for Emily's first steps, first words, first everything. Then Emily turned 2, and Richard left. No warning. No marriage counseling. Just a note on the kitchen counter that said he needed to find himself, and that his lawyer would be in touch about custody arrangements. Custody arrangements he never followed through on, because finding himself apparently meant moving to Phoenix with his new girlfriend and starting over with someone who didn't remind him of responsibility. The child support checks came sporadically for the first year. 23 payments of $400 each. Then they stopped completely. I hired a lawyer who cost me $1,500 to file enforcement paperwork. Richard declared bankruptcy. I got nothing, so I did what I had to do. I went back to work full-time. Then I picked up weekend shifts. Then I started taking night shifts because they paid 30% more. I'd drop Emily off at Little Stars daycare at 6:30 in the morning, work until 3, pick her up, feed her dinner, help her with homework, put her to bed, and then leave again at 10 p.m. to work until 6 a.m. I'd come home, shower, sleep for 2 hours, and start over. I did this for 4 years straight. 4 years of sleeping in my car during lunch breaks. 4 years of missing school plays because I was intubating patients in the ICU. 4 years of eating vending machine food because I couldn't afford both groceries for Emily and groceries for me. When Emily was 7, she asked me why other kids' moms came to the mother-daughter tea party at school. I told her Mommy had to work so we could keep our house and she could have her art classes. She cried. I cried in my car later that night. But I kept working because what choice did I have? I saved every penny I could. I bought a small 3-bedroom house in a decent school district for $98,000 when Emily was 9. My mortgage payment was $750 a month. It was more than I could comfortably afford. But I wanted Emily to have stability, to have her own room, to have a yard where she could play, to have one thing in her childhood that didn't involve sacrifice and struggle. Emily was a good student. Straight A's through elementary school. Honor roll in middle school. National Honor Society in high school. She wanted to go to Northwestern University. The tuition was $54,000 a year. I had $12,000 in savings. I took out Parent Plus loans. $62,000 the first year. Another $60,000 the second year. $58,000 the third year. $59,000 the last year. By the time Emily graduated with her degree in marketing, I was $239,000 in debt. My monthly loan payment was $1,800, more than my mortgage, more than I made in a week after taxes. But Emily got her degree. She got a good job at a marketing firm in Chicago, making $63,000 a year. She got her own apartment. She started building her life. And I was proud. So incredibly proud. Because she'd never have to struggle the way I did. She'd never have to choose between groceries and electricity. She'd never have to sleep in her car because she was too tired to drive home safely between shifts. I thought the hard part was over. I thought now that Emily was launched, I could finally breathe. Maybe pay down my debt. Maybe work fewer hours. Maybe even retire before my body completely gave out. But Emily didn't see it that way. The visits became less frequent after she graduated. Once a month became once every 2 months. Then holidays only. Then just Thanksgiving and Christmas. And when she did come, she always had somewhere else to be. Always checking her phone. Always leaving early. Then 3 years ago, something changed. Emily started coming by every Sunday for dinner. At first, I was thrilled. My daughter wanted to spend time with me again. I'd cook her favorite meals. Pot roast with roasted vegetables. Chicken parmesan, homemade lasagna. I'd set the table with the good dishes. I'd buy wine even though I didn't drink it because Emily liked a glass with dinner. But I started noticing things. Emily never brought anything. No wine, no dessert, no flowers. Nothing. She'd arrive at 5 p.m. exactly, eat, and leave by 7:30. She'd talk about her job, her friends, her trips, but she never asked about me. Never asked how I was doing. Never asked if I needed anything. One Sunday, I didn't have dinner ready. I'd worked a double shift the night before and slept through my alarm. When Emily arrived and saw there was no food, her face changed. Not disappointed. Annoyed. Like I'd failed to perform a service I was obligated to provide. "Mom, I've been looking forward to this all week," she said. "You know I don't have time to cook." I apologized. I offered to order pizza. She sighed like I'd ruined her entire day and left. She didn't come back the next Sunday, or the one after that. When she finally returned 3 weeks later, she didn't acknowledge the gap. She just showed up at 5 p.m., expecting dinner. That's when I understood. I wasn't her mother anymore. I was a resource, a free meal service, a convenience. Then, last year, things escalated. Emily started asking for money. Small amounts at first. $200 for a car repair. $300 for a dental bill. $500 for first month's rent when she moved to a nicer apartment. I gave it to her every time because what mother wouldn't help her daughter? But the requests kept coming. And they got bigger. $1,000 for furniture. $1,500 for a security deposit. $2,000 for a vacation to Mexico because she deserved a break from work stress. I gave her nearly $8,000 in 10 months. Money I didn't have. Money I put on credit cards because my loan payments already consumed most of my income. By the time Emily showed up with those papers asking me to sign over my house, I was $32,000 in credit card debt on top of my student loans. And that's when I realized something that broke my heart. Emily didn't love me. Maybe she never had. Or maybe she did once. But years of watching me struggle had taught her that I was someone who could be used. Someone who would always say yes. Someone whose needs would always come last. The daughter I'd raised wasn't the person standing in my garden asking me to make myself homeless. That person was someone else. A stranger who looked like Emily but had none of her compassion. None of her heart. So, I made a decision that Tuesday morning. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to cry or beg or try to make her see reason. Because you can't reason with someone who's already decided you're expendable. I was going to do something much more powerful. I was going to protect myself. The next morning, I called my bank. I told them I needed to add additional security to my accounts. I set up verbal passwords. I froze my credit. I put alerts on every financial account I had so I'd be notified of any unusual activity. Then I went to see an estate planning attorney. Her name was Jennifer Martinez, and her office was in a small building downtown. I told her everything. About the papers Emily wanted me to sign. About the money I'd given her. About the loans I'd taken out for her education. Jennifer listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and sighed. Mrs. Chen, I see this more often than you'd think. Adult children who see their parents as banks or assets to be managed rather than people to be cared for. What can I do? I asked. First, don't sign anything. Second, I'm going to draft you a new will and a living trust. If something happens to you, Emily won't automatically inherit. We'll set up conditions. She'd have to prove financial need. And even then, the assets would be managed by a trustee who could deny requests. Third, we're going to file for a restraining order against financial exploitation. A restraining order? Against my own daughter? If she's pressuring you to sign over your primary residence, that's financial abuse. It's illegal. And it gives us legal grounds to protect you. I thought about that word. Abuse. I'd never thought of Emily's behavior as abuse. Just as selfishness. As thoughtlessness. But Jennifer was right. What Emily was trying to do was abuse me. Take advantage of my love for her. My desire to help her. My fear of losing the only family I had. I spent the next 2 weeks gathering evidence. I printed out every text message where Emily asked for money. I made copies of every check I'd written to her. I pulled my credit card statements, showing the $8,000 I'd given her. I documented every Sunday dinner, every request, every time she'd made me feel guilty for not doing more. Emily called me during this time. Multiple times. Asking if I'd reviewed the papers. Asking when I'd sign. Her voice got more insistent each time. More impatient. Until finally, she said something that made everything crystal clear. Mom, you're being really difficult about this. I'm trying to help you. If you have the house in your name, and you need Medicaid someday, they'll take it. But if it's in my name, it's protected. I'm doing this for you. It was a lie. A smooth, well-rehearsed lie. But it was still a lie. Because if Emily really wanted to protect the house for Medicaid purposes, there were legal ways to do that. Trusts, life estates, methods that would protect both of us. But those methods wouldn't give Emily complete control. They wouldn't let her sell the house out from under me if she decided she wanted the money. I appreciate your concern, I told her, my voice calm. But I've spoken with an attorney, and I'm going to handle my estate planning differently. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. You spoke to an attorney? Why would you do that? Because I wanted to make sure I understood all my options. Mom, you don't need an attorney. You have me. I'm your daughter. Don't you trust me? That question hung in the air. Did I trust her? The answer was so obvious now. I trust you to do what's best for you, Emily. And I need to do what's best for me. She hung up then. No goodbye. No attempt to understand. Just silence. 3 days later, Emily showed up at my house unannounced. She had someone with her, a man in his 40s wearing an expensive suit. He introduced himself as Marcus Wheeler, Emily's financial advisor. Mrs. Chen, Emily has asked me to help explain why transferring your house is the right financial move, he said, opening his briefcase and pulling out charts and graphs. As you can see here, the tax implications of keeping the property in your name are significant. But if we transfer now, you'll save approximately $43,000 over the next 10 years. I looked at his charts. They were impressive, professional, convincing, if you didn't know what to look for. But I'd spent the last 2 weeks educating myself. I'd read articles. I'd talk to Jennifer. I knew exactly what he was doing. Those numbers assume I'd be selling the house, I said calmly. But I'm not planning to sell. I'm planning to live here until I die. Marcus smiled. Of course. But circumstances change. What if you need assisted living? What if you can't maintain the property? What if my daughter wants to sell my house and keep the money? I interrupted. Is that what you mean by circumstances changing? Emily's face flushed red. Mom, that's not what this is about. Then what is it about, Emily? Because every attorney I've spoken to has told me that signing a quitclaim deed would give you complete ownership. I'd be living here at your mercy. Is that the plan? Marcus stood up. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Perhaps we should reschedule when everyone is thinking more clearly. There's no misunderstanding, I said, standing up too. My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding. Emily wants my house. She's been positioning for this for months. Maybe years. The Sunday dinners. The requests for money. Making me feel guilty for not giving her enough. It was all leading to this moment. Emily's eyes widened. You're being paranoid. I've been trying to spend time with you. Trying to help you. And this is how you repay me? By accusing me of trying to steal from you? I'm not accusing you, Emily. I'm stating facts. You want me to sign papers that would make me legally homeless in my own house. And when I said no, you brought a financial advisor to pressure me. That's not help. That's manipulation. Marcus grabbed his briefcase. I think I should go. After he left, Emily and I stood in my living room, facing each other. And for the first time in years, I really looked at my daughter. At the expensive purse hanging off her shoulder. The designer shoes. The manicured nails. All of it paid for with her $63,000 salary, while I was drowning in debt from putting her through school. You've never asked me how I'm doing, I said quietly. Not once in 3 years. You've never asked if I'm okay. If I have enough money. If I'm tired. If I need help. You just show up expecting dinner and asking for things. That's not fair, Emily said, but her voice was weak. Isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my life? When's the last time you helped me with anything? When's the last time you did something for me that didn't benefit you? She didn't answer. She just stared at me like I was a stranger. And maybe I was. Maybe the mother she thought she knew, the one who always gave in, who always sacrificed, who always put her first, was finally gone. I want you to leave, I said. And I don't want you to come back until you're ready to treat me like a person instead of a resource. Emily's mouth opened, then closed. Then she turned and walked out of my house. She didn't slam the door. She just left. And I stood there in my living room, shaking, wondering if I'd just lost my daughter forever. But here's what I realized in that moment. I hadn't lost Emily. Emily had lost me years ago. She'd lost me the moment she decided I existed to serve her needs. The moment she stopped seeing me as a human being with feelings and needs of my own. The moment she decided my sacrifices were obligations rather than gifts. What happened next was something I hadn't expected. 2 days after Emily left, I got a call from Sacred Heart Hospital. My supervisor, Dr. Patricia Reynolds, wanted to see me. When I arrived at her office, she closed the door and gestured for me to sit down. "Linda, I need to show you something," she said, turning her computer screen toward me. "This was sent to the hospital board yesterday." It was an email from Emily, addressed to the hospital administration, the board of directors, and the human resources department. The subject line read, "Concerns about employee Linda Chen's mental competency." My hands went cold as I read. Emily had written 3 paragraphs describing how I was becoming increasingly confused and paranoid, how I was making irrational financial decisions, how I'd accused her of trying to steal from me when she was only trying to help, how she was concerned I might be experiencing early-stage dementia and shouldn't be trusted to make medical decisions for patients. "She wants you fired," Dr. Reynolds said quietly, "or at least declared incompetent so she can get power of attorney." I couldn't breathe. My own daughter had tried to destroy my career, my livelihood. The only thing standing between me and complete financial ruin. "Linda, I want you to know that I don't believe any of this," Dr. Reynolds continued. "You're one of the sharpest nurses on my staff. Your patient outcomes are exemplary. Your documentation is meticulous. There is 0 evidence of cognitive decline. What happens now?" I managed to ask. "Hospital policy requires us to investigate any concerns about employee competency. But I'm going to make sure this investigation is thorough and fair. In the meantime, I need you to get documentation from your doctor confirming you're in good health. Can you do that?" I nodded. I left her office and sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to process what Emily had done. She hadn't just tried to take my house. She'd tried to take my career, my reputation, my independence. She'd tried to have me declared mentally incompetent so she could control every aspect of my life. That's when something inside me hardened completely. This wasn't just about protecting myself anymore. This was about making sure Emily faced consequences for what she'd done. Real consequences. I called Jennifer Martinez. I told her about the email, about Emily's attempt to have me declared incompetent. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. "Linda, we need to escalate this. What Emily did is beyond financial abuse. She attempted to defame you professionally. She tried to destroy your career. We're filing a restraining order today, and I think you should consider filing a lawsuit for defamation and elder abuse." "Elder abuse?" "I'm 67, not 90. It doesn't matter. You're over 65, and your daughter is attempting to exploit you financially and damage your ability to earn income. That meets the legal definition. And honestly, she needs to face consequences. Because if she's doing this to you, she'll do it to someone else." I went home that day and did something I should have done years ago. I went through my entire house and removed every trace of Emily. The photos on the walls, the Mother's Day cards she'd given me, the artwork she'd made in elementary school that I'd saved for 30 years. I packed it all in boxes and put it in the garage. Then I sat down and wrote Emily a letter. Not an emotional letter, a factual one. "Emily, I am writing to inform you that I will not be signing over my house to you. I have consulted with attorneys and understand that your request was not for my benefit, but for yours. I have also learned about the email you sent to my employer attempting to have me declared mentally incompetent. This action has caused me significant distress and professional harm. I am therefore implementing the following boundaries. You are not to contact me by phone, text, email, or in person. You are not to contact my employer, friends, or medical providers. You are not welcome in my home. Any violation of these boundaries will result in legal action. I have filed for a restraining order that will be served to you within the next 7 days. This decision is final. I wish you well in your life, but that life will no longer include access to me or my resources." I mailed it certified mail, and then I waited. The restraining order was served to Emily at her office 4 days later. She called me immediately, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You filed a restraining order? Against your own daughter? Are you insane? No, Emily. I'm protecting myself from someone who tried to steal my home and destroy my career. I was trying to help you. Help me? You sent an email to my employer saying I was mentally incompetent. You tried to get me fired. How is that helping? Because you are acting crazy. You're paranoid and irrational, and you're throwing away your relationship with your only daughter over money. This isn't about money, Emily. This is about you seeing me as something to be used and discarded when I'm no longer useful. And I'm done being used. She was crying now. Mom, please. We can work this out. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have sent that email. I was just scared, and I wasn't thinking clearly. Please don't do this. For a moment, just a moment, I almost gave in. Almost believed she was sorry. Almost thought maybe we could repair this. But then I remembered something Jennifer had told me. Abusers always apologize when they face consequences, but they're not sorry for what they did. They're sorry they got caught. The restraining order stands, I said. Goodbye, Emily. I hung up. And this time, I was the one who ended the conversation. What happened over the next 6 months was like watching dominoes fall. Emily violated the restraining order 3 times, showing up at my house to talk. Each time, I called the police. Each time, it was documented. On the 3rd violation, she spent a night in jail. My lawsuit for defamation moved forward. Emily's lawyer tried to get it dismissed, arguing that she was acting out of legitimate concern. But the evidence was overwhelming. She had no basis for claiming I was mentally incompetent. She'd fabricated concerns to manipulate my employer. The judge denied the dismissal. Then something else happened. Something I hadn't anticipated. Emily's employer found out about the restraining order and the lawsuit. Apparently, attempting to financially exploit and defame your elderly mother doesn't look good when you work in marketing for a company that promotes itself on family values. Emily was placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. She started posting on social media then. Long, emotional posts about how she was the victim of a vindictive mother who had turned on her for trying to help. How she was devastated and heartbroken. How she couldn't believe her own mother would do this to her. The comments were initially sympathetic. Until someone did a little digging and found the court documents. Found the restraining order. Found the lawsuit details. Found Emily's email to my employer. And then the comments changed. Wait, you tried to steal your mom's house? You sent an email trying to get your own mother fired? This isn't about helping. This is about control. Emily deleted the posts. But screenshots live forever. Several of her friends reached out to me privately to apologize and ask for my side of the story. I thanked them, but declined to discuss details. I didn't need to defend myself publicly. The court documents did that for me. The settlement came through 8 months after I filed the lawsuit. Emily's lawyer convinced her to settle rather than go to trial, where everything would become public record in more detail. The terms were, Emily paid me $45,000 in damages. She was required to write a letter to my employer retracting her claims and apologizing for making false statements. She was required to write me a letter acknowledging that she had attempted to exploit me financially. And she was required to stay at least 500 feet away from me for a minimum of 2 years. The money arrived in my account on a Wednesday. $45,000. I paid off $8,000 in credit card debt immediately. I put $20,000 toward my student loans, and the remaining $17,000? I put it in a savings account. Not for emergencies. Not for bills. For something else entirely. 3 months later, I bought a plane ticket to Vietnam. I'd never been back to the country where I was born, where my mother had given birth to me in a small village before giving me up to an orphanage because she couldn't feed me, where I'd spent the first 3 years of my life before being adopted by American parents who died in a car accident when I was 7, putting me back into the foster system. I spent 2 weeks in Vietnam. I found the village where I was born. I found distant relatives who remembered my mother, who told me she'd died 10 years ago but had often wondered what happened to the baby girl she'd given away, who said she'd never stopped feeling guilty, never stopped hoping I'd had a better life. I cried in that village. Cried for the mother who gave me up. Cried for the childhood I'd lost. Cried for the years of struggling and sacrificing and trying so hard to create the family I never had. Cried for the daughter who'd become a stranger. But I also felt something else. Something like peace. Because I realized that I'd spent my entire life trying to create perfect family bonds. Trying to be the perfect mother. Trying to sacrifice enough, love enough, give enough, to make up for all the family I'd lost. But perfection was impossible. And sacrifice without boundaries was just self-destruction. When I came back to the States, I made changes. I cut back to 3 shifts a week at the hospital. I started attending a support group for parents of estranged adult children. I discovered I wasn't alone. That there were dozens of other parents in my city who'd been exploited, manipulated, and discarded by the children they'd raised. I started volunteering at a community center, teaching financial literacy to immigrant women. Teaching them how to protect themselves, how to recognize exploitation, how to set boundaries, how to understand that loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. I made new friends. Real friends who asked how I was doing, who brought soup when I was sick, who invited me to book clubs and movie nights, who saw me as a person, not a resource. I sold my house 18 months after the settlement, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I wanted something smaller, something easier to maintain, something that was mine without the weight of all those years of struggle attached to it. I bought a small 2-bedroom condo near the community center where I volunteered. It cost $92,000. I paid cash using the profit from selling my house. No mortgage. No debt except the student loans, which I was finally making real progress on. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt free. Emily reached out one time after the 2-year restraining order expired. A brief email that said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Can we talk?" I read it 3 times. I thought about it for a week. And then I replied with 2 sentences, "I forgive you, but I'm not interested in rebuilding a relationship. I wish you well." She didn't respond. And I didn't expect her to. Some people asked me if I felt guilty. If I regretted losing my daughter, if I wished I'd tried harder to make it work. And the answer is no. Because Emily didn't want a mother. She wanted a bank account with emotions. She wanted someone who would give endlessly without expecting anything in return. Someone who would sacrifice themselves into oblivion and call it love. I'm 70 years old now. I work 2 shifts a week at the hospital because I want to, not because I have to. I have friends who genuinely care about me. I have a small, peaceful home that's completely paid for. I have hobbies. I have freedom. I have dignity. And I have something else. Something I never had before. I have boundaries. I have the absolute certainty that my worth isn't measured by how much I can give or sacrifice or endure. That protecting myself isn't selfish. That saying no is sometimes the most loving thing you can do, even if the person you're saying no to is your own child. I think about Emily sometimes. Wonder if she's happy. If she ever understood what she did wrong. If she ever felt genuine remorse rather than just regret at getting caught. But mostly, I don't think about her at all. Because I've learned the most important lesson of my life. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can't love someone into treating you well. And you can't sacrifice yourself into being valued. The only person you can truly save is yourself. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is close a door that should never have been opened in the first place. Not out of hatred, not out of revenge, but out of simple, profound self-love. That's my story. It's not a happy story in the traditional sense. I didn't get a fairy tale ending where my daughter realized her mistakes and we reconciled. But I got something better. I got myself back. I got my life back. I got my peace back. And at 70 years old, living in my small condo with my books and my friends and my freedom, I can honestly say I've never been happier. Because I finally learned that being a good mother doesn't mean destroying yourself for your child. It means teaching them, by example, how to live with integrity and self-respect. Emily didn't learn that lesson from me. But maybe someone else will. Maybe someone listening to this story will recognize themselves in it. Will recognize the pattern of endless giving and never receiving. Of sacrificing until there's nothing left. Of confusing self-destruction with love. And maybe they'll do what I did: set boundaries, protect themselves, choose dignity over desperation, close the door on people who only see them as resources to be exploited. It's never too late. I was 67 when I finally stood up for myself. 67 when I finally said no. 67 when I finally chose me. If I can do it, so can you. That's the message I want to leave you with. It's never too late to save yourself. Never too late to demand respect. Never too late to walk away from people who don't value you, even if those people are your own children. You deserve better. You deserve peace. You deserve dignity. And you're strong enough to claim it. I know because I did it. And if this 70-year-old woman who spent her whole life being told she had to sacrifice everything for family can find the courage to choose herself, then anyone can. It's never too late. Remember that. It's never, ever too late.